played 3 tests in an Ashes winning series down under. And the low light, I think, would be being dropped on Christmas Day by Andrew Strauss in the toilet area of the MCG.
How's that for a present?
Yeah.
I'm your secret Santa.
Graham Swan leave him when his elbow was hanging off. Trotty going home after that first test, and the reception that he received.
It's quite a manly thing to do, is you just can't tell anyone that you're struggling.
Psychologist who I'd never met before, like, he just asked me one question. He was like, "Is everything okay?" And I just lost it.
The lads were niggled by the fact that Haddon had targeted you. It sort of saw it as targeting the 21-year-old.
He's having a pop at me, just calling me, saying things like, "You're cack, you're useless." And yeah, he was basically escorted out to the middle by...
all the way to the middle.
Yeah.
Remember, it was amazing, really. It was great. It's what you play for. Hey, this one bloke's just walking out to bat and there's 11 people just hammering him. I'm delighted to say we're joined by one of our ex-England teammates, Jose Stephen Finn. Finny, how you getting on, mate?
I'm very good. It's good to be here in both of your company.
Bit of R&R after a busy... So I saw loads of you this summer in the comms box.
Yeah, it's a different life, isn't it? You feel like you're busy as a player and travelling up and down the country, but it goes to another level if you, especially the month of the 100.
You're actually working for a living.
I know, yeah. We actually have to do something hard working. But no, it was a great summer, wasn't it? The India Test series. And then the white ball stuff has been interesting to see develop as well. So yeah, it's been a busy summer, but I think glad that it's over.
You should see this man, Jose. If he's not on if he's not on the radio, if he's not on the telly, he's doing a Q&A at lunch in some hospitality box.
I see you in the boxes. I think you enjoy those the most, don't you?
It's like water, the places where Broady doesn't go. You've just got to try and filter your way in there.
You're both fighting for the airwaves, aren't you? How have you found that transition post-cricket?
It's been great. Like, I kind of prepared for it. In the last few years of my career, I kind of realised that I wasn't that good at cricket anymore and my body was letting me down, so prepared for it a little bit. But yeah, taking the jump, I think, to retire in the first place is actually one that takes a lot of thought, because it's a big thing to let go of. But then once you've let go of that and you learn new skills and you find stuff that keeps your juices flowing, I suppose, when it comes to broadcasting, putting yourself in awkward situations, whether it's interviewing people like I interviewed you, or like taking on more lead roles and stuff like that, you really find other ways to challenge yourselves that you kind of chase when you're a player. So that's been interesting. The hardest bit is like finding ways to be critical about people that you like and be constructive at the same time. I think is something that
that'll come with time, surely.
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge, I think, because you have to remember how hard it is to play the game when you're a commentator, and when you've not played it for a few years, you sort of look down from your bird's eye position and you're like, God, this game's easy. Why hasn't he not bowled that? Why has he not done this? I think you have to remind yourself a lot how difficult the game is to play, which is something I try and do. How
was it interviewing him? Because it was quite an official interview, wasn't it? But obviously you've spent so many hours with him in a change room and socially.
It's as nice as he's ever been to me, yeah, to be honest.
The highlight was the sign-off.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I look forward to watching my career or something.
Well, I didn't have an out. Like, we got to the end of the interview and I was kind of looking at him thinking, I don't know what to say now, because I'd usually just we'd just cuddle each other and then go our separate ways. I was like, yeah, I look forward to seeing how the rest of your career develops. It was.
I just burst out laughing, didn't I? And then it was like, we've got to redo that. And then it was so hard, because
they cut it from the whole interview. There was just a hard ending.
Never seen the light of day.
And when you got to do something serious, he's just smiling, isn't he, all the time.
No, that's good. But you've also obviously been busy writing a book, The Ashes Files, My Pride and Pain in Cricket's Most Intense Series. So that's no doubt kept you busy. What was your motivation to write the book and all about your Ashes experiences?
I think the motivation was, it felt like the time was right, like enough time had passed after my career to reflect on the good and the bad, because I think when you play, and you guys would have experienced this, is you kind of insulate yourself from the extreme ups and downs, or you try to, and you try and kid yourself things are better than they are when they're going badly, and vice versa. If they're going really well, you try and keep yourself level. Whereas I think with a period of reflection, I was able to look back, and the reason for the title, The Ashes Files, I kind of kept diaries through my Ashes tours, and I had a good one and a couple of bad ones, and to kind of read those and reflect on the emotions that I felt then, It just felt like enough time had elapsed after my career to cover them honestly and to reflect on them honestly. So
almost a bit of therapy in a way, because you're right, in sport you're just moving on all the time. What's next, like what's the next challenge? To go back when you finished and actually digest how you were feeling, it's quite good in a sense.
Yeah, very, very therapeutic. And especially when you feel like you're fighting yourself a lot throughout your career, and you kind of reflect, with hindsight, on the good and the bad things throughout it. It was definitely therapeutic going through it. I definitely cried a couple of times to the ghostwriter, Matt Roller, during it, like remembering emotions and remembering moments that you were in, and like wondering how could you be so unkind to yourself in that moment, and things like that. So there's certainly a lot of reflection that came as a part of it, but when I sat down and read it afterwards, it felt like a accurate representation of what I experienced.
2010, 2011, your first Ashes experience, being a successful one, the team going and win over there, highs and lows. I remember you came to Chittagong in Bangladesh, I think, in the February beforehand, and you were bowling in the middle. I remember warming up for the test match. Must have been bowling before the test match started, not playing in the game. I remember saying to whoever I was with, like, who on earth is that? Like 6'6", tall, gangly, 90 mile an hour, bouncing through to the keeper, bounce that Bangladesh had never seen before. So immediately you looked like that sort of top class like attributes, and then bang, you're in an Ashes team. You fly into Australia. What was that like, being on that flight, knowing that this is going to be first exposure to Ashes cricket?
I think the thing that overridingly stands out now is how naive I was at the time to it all, which was a good thing. Because I think when you've experienced it down there, and all we heard in the build-up to the series was how tough it's going to be. We did that amazing camp in Germany where we thought we were going to Oktoberfest, and we ended up having to lug Chris Tremler on a stretcher through the forest, and carry these 2 bricks that were our best friends.
You got stuck in a press-up position, didn't you?
Yeah, I could well have still been there now, holding it 15 years on. That was challenging.
What age are you at this time?
21, just 21. Turned 21, yeah. And I just saw it as like a reconnaissance mission for the rest of my career, kind of going there thinking, this is an experience that is meant to be really hard, but it can only serve me well going there and just being wide-eyed when you get there and try your hardest, like not worry too much about the consequences or the fact that you are playing in an Ashes series, and just see how it goes. Effectively, it was my mindset, which conversely is a mindset that I then chased for the rest of my career and only found it intermittently throughout it. So I just remember being really wide-eyed, getting on that plane, landing in Perth, feeling the confrontation that you do feel when you go to Australia. I'm not sure it's as bad as people make out it is a lot of the time, but there's certainly a degree of confrontation that you're not used to as an England cricketer when you go other places and play, and just feeling as though, let's see what this is all about, as opposed to anything else.
Particular highlights on that trip that you remember, and a particular low?
The highlight was, I think, personally taking the wicket of Mike Hussey on the last morning at Adelaide. You tore your side, I reckon.
The night before.
Yeah. And we had to take, I think, 4 or 5 wickets that last morning of the game, in order to win it and go 1 up in the series. And we'd played so well, it felt like we couldn't waste that opportunity. So
do you remember how much rain came as well?
Yeah, I remember Paul Collingwood doing the Klinsman across the square when it was hammering down about an hour after we'd got off the field of play. So yeah, that was probably my one highlight, and feeling that high of being on the pitch when that last wicket was taken, the Barmy Army being underneath the scoreboard, like they're quite vivid memories. That would be the highlight. And then the low light, I think, would be being dropped on Christmas Day by Andrew Strauss in the toilet area of the MCG.
How's that for a present?
Yeah.
I'm your secret Santa.
Well, that feeling, like...
Did you know that was coming at all?
Well, I kind of guessed, because I'd gone around the park in Perth. We'd got rolled over by Johnson twice in that test match. At Perth, but I hadn't bowled well. I just knew I was up for the chop, but you still kind of try and retain some hope that you're going to survive and you're going to play in a Boxing Day test. But no, I knew deep down that it was on the cards. And then you kind of see Strauss, you know, that moment where just after you've trained, before the team has a meeting, the captain goes round and ticks people off. You guys would have done it as England captains. And he kind of made a beeline for me.
Can I have a word or something?
Yeah. And like, you just see him walking towards you. I was sat there and I was like, oh shit, this is actually happening. And he says, can we just have a quiet word in the toilets? So we stood by like all the hand dryers. And yeah, he delivered very matter of fact, delivered the news. And yeah, it wasn't unexpected, but it still hit me like a train at the time because of dreaming of playing in a Boxing Day test.
It's so hard. It's almost like a pointless conversation because you know the outcome. You almost like, you may as well just nod heads and say, I know, I know what's coming. But there was obviously some amazing, to be a 21-year-old playing in that series, obviously to go on and win it. But like playing against some great Australian players, and like you say, you're a bit naive to it. Now your reflections, do you sort of see the magnitude of what you're a part of?
Oh, I do now, yeah, definitely. And that's like part of that stepping back and seeing what's transpired in Australia since as well, and before. When you look at it within the context of history, like the fact that we went down there and I played 3 tests in an Ashes winning series down under, like you look at it through that lens, it's wow, it's amazing. But at the time, yeah, you do have that reticence to celebrate it because you think better things are to come in your career. Clearly they weren't. but you kind of look at it through the lens of, we're just going to move on to the next thing. So yeah, definitely now having stepped back and seen what's happened down there since, yeah, it feels like a big achievement.
It was a really galvanising moment, if you remember it, at the Gabba at Brisbane. We were walking off at lunch or tea, and Brad Haddon was having a go at you. Do you remember? Like really, like slagging you off, but we couldn't really hear what he was saying. You got into the change room. He was like, I don't know why he was doing that, but he's having a real pop at me. And as you walk out the Gabba change rooms home and away, you then stand in a little like waiting area before you go out into the tunnel. And the lads were niggled by the fact that Haddon had targeted you. It sort of saw it as targeting the 21-year-old. And Brad Haddon was waiting with his helmet on, gloves, when we walked out after the tea break. And everyone just flew at him. Do you remember?
And they were miles ahead in the game. Like, it felt like quite an important moment because I remember quite vividly, I stood there having a going to the toilet and surrounded by your teammates, and I was like, I had Matty P and Kev. I was stood between them. I was like, lads, I'm not grass, but like Haddon's having a pop at me, I can take it. Like, I'm a grown man, but like he's having a pop at me, just calling me, saying things like, you're cack, you're useless, you're rubbish. Like, which, like, it's just sledging. It's just how it is. He's trying to get into my mindset. But I told those guys, who I think then told the rest of the team, and yeah, he was basically escorted out to the middle by
all the way to the middle. Yeah. Remember, it was amazing. Really, it was great. It's what you played for. Hey, this one bloke's just walking out to bat, and there's 11 people just hammering him all the way to the crease. That just, they were probably like 400 for 5 or something, weren't they? But
and miles ahead of
felt
the game,
like a moment of whatever the scoreboard is. You can't have a pop at our youngest player and think that you'll get away with it. Because that was Haddon's way a bit, wasn't he? Target inexperienced players. Remember him nailing Stokesy on his debut as well. And the whole team just, bang, went for him. And got out of that test with a draw and never looked back on in the rest of that series, really, the guys, did they?
Yeah, and that's why the first test of this series, I think it's good that it's going to be in Perth for England. Historically, haven't got a great record at Brisbane, but also with the squad that England have picked and the way that England play, you look at this Ashes series and you just think that it's different to the mindset of the teams that have travelled there in the last 15 years, in the sense that they're going to puff their chests out and not be bullied, which I think Australia are very good at playing, and having that bravado as the home team. Of course, use it to your advantage, but I just see the way that England will push back against that very different, and how they start the series is going to be crucial.
Can I pick your brain on it's a bit of an awkward thing to bring up, but was it the hand or the knee hitting the stumps? I think it was 2012, South Africa at Headingley. From memory, I was at mid-on. Did you get Graham Smith out and he was called back because your hand had clipped the bails?
Knee.
Was it your knee? Yeah. And it's sort of, whether it was the press built this up or it sort of kick-started a bit of a domino effect of your rhythm, really, didn't it? Because the stumps suddenly became a bit of an issue because they brought the rule in that it was a dead ball if you knocked the bails off?
Yeah, so what happened was that I'd like intermittently clipped the bails at the striker's end with my knee through the summer, and I hadn't played the first test against South Africa, called in for the second at Headingley, and nicked on the first morning. We were bowling, nicked Smith off, caught first slip by Strauss, and you're just celebrating, and turned around and Steve Davies was giving it the dead balls. And it was just like a moment of confusion and disbelief, I suppose, because great bowlers had clipped the non-striker's end
Pollock used to do it all the
with
time.
their hand.
Really?
Yeah, Pollock did it. McGrath
But had it
did
always been dead ball before? It was just carry on.
They called it. It was just carry on.
But you'd say you'd been clipping the bails a bit. Like that happened
intermittently,
every now and again.
Once every 10 overs,
Or like
maybe
for
it would
Middlesex
happen.
or England,
Yeah, and in the one day as earlier that summer. But by calling it dead ball in that moment, Steve Davies and Rod Tucker had set a precedent to say that every ball that is now clipped the stumps at the non-striker's end is a dead ball. So there were then, for the rest of that day, I might have done it 4 or 5 other times, and I think Smith hit me for 2 boundaries off those balls.
But that was a dead ball as well.
They were called dead balls, so the runs didn't go against his name. It was just bowl it again. But that set a precedent that then forced the lawmakers to change it to be a no ball, because that was, you couldn't continue. It wasn't sustainable to continue in that manner. So by setting that precedent, it meant that I had to tinker with my run up, which then affected my rhythm. I came off a short run up for a little while to try and not allow myself to dart in towards the stumps.
By the way, you were unbelievable off that short run.
Well,
New
for a
Zealand
few
one
weeks
day.
I was.
That New Zealand one day series, you were
Yeah.
rapid.
I did, but it messed with the fundamentals of my bowling. Like, it made my rhythm like really jerky. It made my arms really short, delivery stride really short, which was fine whilst you were confident and whilst you were on top of the world. But then, as soon as you weren't, you didn't have like the fundamentals that I'd built up over 20 odd years of my life to fall back on. Which then, when I lost that rhythm, I found it really, really hard to regain, and that's when the battle inside my own head starts, and forces change, and it fell out of favour.
So, do you think your knee hitting those stumps in 2012 made you struggle for a couple of years after that?
Absolutely, yeah. Like it took every ounce of my strength and mental strength to make it back from it in the end, because I got to a stage in 2013-14 where I was still playing for England, but we went on that Ashes tour and we picked like the tallest fast bowling attack in history. It was me, you, Trem, Boyd Rankin. But I was the only person who didn't play a test on that tour, because I got to a stage where it just wouldn't have been kind to send me out there, because I'd tangled things up so much inside my own head. So,
and also you're training, because you weren't playing at the start, you're netting so much, and you can, because you're not in live game scenarios, you're then overthinking and over tinkering in nets, and you can just get worse and worse, can't you?
Yeah, and you compound bad habits, and it gets to a stage where everything's so tangled in your mind that actually what used to be so simple, you just throw me a ball and I run towards the crease and bowl it, became very unsimple and complicated. So it got to that stage, and that was rock bottom, and the book charts that, and there are diary entries that are quite confronting and honest in the book that say where my mindset was at that time, which aren't pleasant to read back thinking about, or sat here thinking about it now, but whilst we were doing the process, weren't that pleasant to go back upon. But yeah, it's just a period and a passage of my career, and I'm glad that I came back out the other side.
During that Ashes tour 13-14, were there times, or if you look back now, would it have been better for you just to go 2 tests in, do you know what, I'm not feeling this at all, I don't feel in the right place to play, can I go home? I do, but I think when you look at Trotty going home after that first test and the reception that he received, Graham Swan leave him when his elbow was hanging off, the reception he received for going home and leaving the tour, I was someone who always saw my way out of problems as hard work and wanting to knuckle down and try even harder to make things right. And I think that by having that mindset, I just continued to compound bad habits. I'd go to the nets more often, I'd train harder, and you just end up in this cycle of it's like a downward spiral, really. So I looking back in hindsight again now, if I was being kind to a 24-year-old who was clearly not in a great place mentally, I would say
it makes absolute sense to go home and take yourself out of the spotlight and the limelight for a little while and work on the fundamentals that you need to come back. But I didn't, and I stayed there, and it took Ashley Giles to forcibly send me home to find that break in the end.
To just explain how that can spiral really is when you're on an England tour but you're not playing. Yes, you're trying to work on technical things, but you're also half a mind on that you could play tomorrow or 2 days' time. So you're trying to stay match fit, match ready, match sharpened, but you're trying to fix things as well. And that's why bad habits can continue for a long time, because that's you trying to get your mind into match mode. But by doing that, you're not actually correcting technical problems. And that's why it can elongate, can't it? Because you're still in an England squad. You still be ready. You've got to be ready to go. You could get the nod that you're playing on Boxing Day in front of 100,000 people tomorrow, but you're also trying to work on technical things, but you don't want that to completely stuff everything for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think when you look at yourself when you're playing your best, your mind is just free. You're not thinking about anything. It's like a blank space that might have the odd reminder of something to do, like Jos's backhand, or like whatever cues you would have when you were running up. For me, it was always my front arm and where I was following through, like my 2 cues, that when I was in good rhythm, that's all I thought about. And you're completely immersed in the battle. At the other end, I think the challenge that you have when you're not in competitive mode, i.e. playing test matches or playing games, is that your battle just becomes so internal. And when you're on a what they were long tours then, because we'd get there a month before the first test, you're there for 3 months not really playing a competitive game. I played 2 warm-up games in that time, and yeah, you do just, your battle becomes completely internal, which is challenging.
Yeah, I think just listening to you talk, it's amazing to think, 3-4 years before that, you're 21, you're part of the Ashes winning squad, most amazing series win, and then do you feel like without people really realising where you were, then 4 years later you're in such a different headspace, and such a, from the hitting the stumps, and how that can so quickly transpire into one of my great mates, but I'm probably sat here thinking, God, I didn't really realise the space here. And do you feel like it's quite a manly thing to do, is that you just can't tell anyone that you're struggling, because it's like you said, the other guys going home, Johnson's bowling so fast, It's like the way it looks and the optics, but it's like, did you have anyone that you could confide in, or was that the diary really that was your sort of thing that you were trying to help use you to get to where you needed to be?
Yeah, I think no, I didn't have people that I could confide in, because it's challenging when you're on tour, isn't it? Because you don't want to admit that vulnerability to people in case it affects selection, or you're perceived as being weak, I suppose, which then we're talking 12, 13 years ago now, which is, it's a long time. And thankfully, but like, the world has moved on since then. I think it's okay to speak about those things if you're experiencing them. But certainly at the time, it felt as though, and my mindset as well was, I'm going to deal with these things myself. I'll be fine. I've dealt with everything myself before. I don't need to share this stuff. But actually, it's only when you take a step back and share, and you realise the tangled up mess that you got yourself into. I only really confronted them in 2017, when I came home from the next away Ashes tour with a knee injury, and that's when I had space to like sit back and actually speak to someone and confide in them and talk about it, and realise like what an absolute mess I was in at the time. But yeah, there was one moment on that tour, the 13-14 tours, like I went to the Lions to train whilst I think the England team were playing in the Brisbane Test, but the Lions were there at the same time. So to get some bowling at batters, we were sent to the Lions, and I was bowling, and then the psychologist, who I'd never met before, like he just asked me one question. He was like, "Is everything okay?" And I just lost it, because I was within the team environment. I had my guard up and my shield up the whole time to convince everyone that everything was okay. But then this one guy that I'd never met before, I don't know if I've seen him since, asked me one question and the floodgates opened. Like, that should have been a warning sign. But as soon as I got back into the England environment, the guard went up again.
We've got some big news, cricket lovers.
We have indeed, Jose. The Lords 2026 ticket ballot is now open.
Amazing scenes. What does Lords mean to you, Broady?
Style, tradition, history. What about you?
2019 World Cup, hard to look past. And I also love walking through the long room and that view out onto the pitch just as you are about to come out onto the ground.
It really is the home of cricket. There are 3 great test matches next year and an ODI.
Yep, 2 men's tests, New Zealand and Pakistan, followed by an ODI against India.
And the first ever women's test match at Lord's against India.
Head to the link in our episode description.
And enter the ballot now for the 2026 Cricket Summer at Lord's.
There's nothing quite like Lord's.
You got back to bowling in 2015, I remember very clearly. You came in and had a huge impact on that series, bowling the speed of light at Edgbaston. You got back-to-back wickets, didn't you? I remember the atmosphere being so loud. So you'd found a way to get yourself technically back in a place where you could play for England again, and you did that really successfully.
Yeah, that's probably my favourite period of my career, I think, because I always craved control, craved control of what I was doing, and I think that was bred in the team that we played in the early 2010s, where you had to have control in order to be in that team, because it was the best cricket team that I ever played in, that one that I went into in 2010. So I always craved that control and like the absolute feeling off your fingertips of knowing what was happening. And for about 9 months, I just felt like I had that, and that was that period between the middle of 2015 to early 2016. We had some good times. All 3 of us played.
Yeah, I was concerned keeping wicket to in that, but I would say you bowled in a way then that I hadn't seen you bowl before. Like you shaped the ball away at pace, whereas you'd say maybe before that you were more running it back into a right-hander. So what was the change there? Did you feel like that was part of the getting away from that way and style you bowled before, and you had to do that to alter your game a little bit? But it's interesting. I find that you're like, that's the best. Obviously you bowled so well, but that time as a 21, 22-year-old, you obviously bowling incredibly well, but in quite a different style, would you say?
Yeah, different style. I think I became more playful with it at that stage of my career. I was 26. I'd overcome that massive hurdle. The coaching structure changed as well to Trev and Otis and Farby, and I just felt as though I could play around with things a little bit more. I remember a meeting with Andy Flower and David Saker in the dressing rooms in Auckland, where they're like big rugby dressing rooms, and they've got like little coaching rooms, like offshoots. And I took an expensive 6 for, albeit, but 6 for in a test match. And that was a test where I was playing around with trying to hold the ball seam up to get it to move laterally, because those wickets were so flat on that tour. So my seam was pointing towards first slip, and I was pulled into this room, and Andy Flower was like, "Why is your seam pointing towards first slip?" And I was like, "I'm trying to get it to move away from the right-handers." He was like, "You're not in the team to do that. You're in the team to run the ball back into right-handers and across lefties." And I was like, right, okay. And that was like the mindset of that team was control. You're in the team to fulfill a role, and that's it. Whereas with the style of management in 2015, I felt as though I could be more playful with it. And I was stood at the back of the nets with Gibbo before the first test in Cardiff, that I wasn't playing, but I was in the squad. And I was like, "Gibbo, I'm toying with the idea of trying to swing the ball away from right-handers. What do you think?" And he was like, "Why would you not want to move the ball, you idiot?" Basically, the idea of bowling is to move the ball and take wickets. And just that real shift in mentality is something that I resonated with. And that's why when I was stood at the back of my mark, when I came back into the team at Edgbaston, I had a choice to make. I was like, do I bowl wobble seam and I can control the line and length better? I can run it back into Smith. Is that how we're going to get him out? Probably not. Or I can err on the side of not being cautious, hold it seam up and try and swing it away and think about taking wickets, which
he nicked one, didn't he?
In the first over,
into Cookie, didn't he?
Straight first slip.
What was that feeling like? To actually go, right, I'm going to do this, and then get their best player out.
Yeah. Well, the ball before he drove me for 4, so I was like, oh shit, is this the right thing to be doing?
Bit of width, slash through cover point,
bang through the covers. It's like the most emotional I've ever been on a cricket pitch, but not intentionally. I'd have the most boring bowling celebration. Like you'd nick someone off, and I'd like waggling a finger. I wasn't Broady doing the face, but it was just like pure emotion because
you couldn't control it.
It was just like since I got sent home from Australia, I didn't know if I'd ever be good enough again to play for England. And you have hours like sat at home watching your mates play and thinking, I want to be out there with them again. I want to experience that. And you build yourself over 18 months, 2 years back up to that point where you're in an England test shirt again, which to me was the thing that I valued the most throughout my career. To feel vindicated and justified in that moment was like just a pure release of emotion that it never came before and hasn't come after.
I find that because I remember keeping wickets that, and it was like I said, I hadn't seen you bowl in that style before. You know, when you come off the field and you just sort of like, that was unbelievable. The way Finny bowled, like it was rapid, it bounced, swinging away, like, and it's sort of, when you see, you talk about the best people can deliver. Like your best was like world beating. It was as good as anyone could bowl. It was fast, it was bounce, it was movement. Like, and it was, I just remember everyone just being so like excited. Like, and you got 6 for in the second innings as well. And it was like, it wasn't a surprise. It was like, well, the way you bowled in the first, you're bound to get wickets.
Did you
and
get,
it was like,
was it Voges first ball or Michael Clark? Or?
I think it was Clark, then Voges in 2 balls.
Remember
that's
that,
like
that noise from Edgbaston when, was it Adam Lyth maybe caught it? And he ran off to third man and you were sprinting past me a cover. Like, my God, we got 2 and 2, we got 2 and 2.
That's it.
But I just got like, because not to like bring you back down, but knowing how good your best is.
He's bringing you back down here. He's going to say,
it's fair enough.
I don't want to disturb you, but
theme of the book though, isn't it? But like, and also the man of the match and all that stuff, but like it feels like there's a theme of like how the frustrations, like knowing how good you were, and obviously at times it was your body and whatever, whether it was your mind or whatever, but like it must be really, really hard knowing your best is the best in the world.
The like chasing your best, it drives you mad. Like it drove me mad at times.
And your own expectations.
Your own expectations are so high. You know what your body is capable of, and you chase that feeling. And chasing that's great. That's what drives everyone. I think that's what would drive you to continue to play. Is you're chasing and striving for perfection or what your perfection is. It's great. Like. Whilst you're...
Do you think you tried to be too perfect sometimes?
I'd say so, yeah. Because I think when I first played for England, I took wickets, but it was expensive. And I'd always be thinking, God, imagine if I took wickets at this strike rate with an economy of 2.8. Like, this is unbelievable. I'd love to do this. Like,
McGrath.
Every bowler in the history of the game would love to do that. So, it was definitely a mental flaw on my part, like always wanting more and always striving for more. And I think it's a fine balance between like using that as motivation or using it as an obsession that's unhealthy, and I probably bordered on the unhealthy obsession.
I often think timing in sport is so important as well. When I think of the Baz and Stokesy's revolution of how Harry Brooks started, now Jacob Bethel's starting now, I look at you and think, if I could pick a 22-year-old bowler to start right now with Stokes and Baz, natural wicket takers, hey, didn't you have like the best strike rate in Test cricket for 100 wickets or something like that? Not you started, and we had, you quite rightly mentioned, one of the best teams you ever played in. But if you didn't go under 3 and over, you weren't in that team. Your job wasn't to get 10 wickets quickly.
It was always 270 was the number.
270 for 7 in a day. Don't go over 3 and over. And for you, that was quite stifling because you were a bowler of magical deliveries, but you leaked the odd boundary. Whereas Stokesy would almost praise the boundary you're leaking, that it would get you another wicket, if that makes sense. So I'm certainly not slagging off that team that we had in that era.
Because it's what made us good, wasn't it?
That was the culture. I used to watch the batters train in that era, and they'd count their throwdowns. Everyone would have 25 throwdowns. But 1, 2, 3, 4, next, 1, 2. It was so structured, but all the batters averaged 45, 50. It was pretty incredible, really. But it did feel like your style of bowling, if there's one bowler I could pick to play under Baz now, it would be you.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely watch, and you guys would have experienced playing under him in an international perspective. I played with him as my captain at Middlesex, and it was certainly liberating playing for him, because you'd walk back to your mark having been hit for 4 and he'd say, I don't care. And you'd be like, what do you mean you don't care? And it's not that he doesn't care. He's trying to free up your mind to be able to express yourself out there on the pitch, which is that mindset that we spoke about, where you want to go out there and be free and just have an empty head. I think that style of management really lends itself to it, and is why it has suited this England team and has got the best out of a lot of players, is because I think it does help that. So there's certainly times where you look at it. I think I texted Stokesy after his first summer in charge and said, like, I just love the way you're going about it, and I wish I was still fit enough or good enough to play under you, because it looks like you're having fun whilst playing Test cricket and getting the best out of people.
Let's bring Broady 8 for 15 Trent Bridge to win the Ashes.
Not bad spell of bowling, yeah.
Go on then, Johnny, ball by ball.
Yeah, we've got a whole episode on that if you want it. But that must have, I have that picture at home of Mark Wood taking the Nathan Lyon, isn't it?
Yeah.
The wicket, and like,
that pissed me off, actually.
I'm
the only one not in it.
pitch.
I was at fine leg.
But like, that must have, like, again, when you get to talking about how big the Ashes is and all the trials and tribulations that you've been through, and then that moment, it's like when you just can't control, you're running down a hill and it's the best thing ever. But that must have just been such a, like you say, when not you've come full circle, because you're only still in the middle of your career, but like to go from where you were to come back again and experience that.
Yeah, the one thing I remember about that, because Jimmy got injured in the first test, didn't he? Sorry, not the first test, the third test he got injured.
Your first test back.
Yeah, my first test back. And you were bowling the first over for England in a test match. Like, you'd have done it a few times before, but like, I remember you talking about like the responsibility of doing it. I remember
never before. That was first ever.
That was your first ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember you being like, I'm going to set the tone. I have to set the tone. And like, I'm not saying you could tell when you were going to bowl well, but like there was this, you could just see in your eyes that morning that it was like you were just locked in. And your knees were like up round your ears, and I was at mid-off for a lot of it, and just the bounce, and then Stokesy's catch. That was like one of the most amazing days cricket that I've ever. In fact, it is the most amazing days cricket I've ever been involved in.
And you bowled the best ball of the day.
I bowled probably the best ball of my career.
It's like swung away, nipped back, top of off. Beautiful.
I can't even remember it.
Yeah, it was a goodie. You should remember it.
Mostly gone by the time you got into bowl, wasn't
it? It was Peter Neville at number 7. But yeah, that was just it was a ridiculous week, really. The flyover from the Red Arrows after it all, and remembering the like extreme low of being sent home from that tour of Australia, to then being in amongst all your mates, celebrating, going out in Nottingham afterwards was good fun.
But even this time we've had today, talking about our experience of Ashes cricket, connecting with the different highs and lows. Even when Finny's talking about his highs and lows, I'm personally going back, thinking about mine. Ashes cricket just has a way of bringing that out of you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
what are yours?
What the particular highs and... I mean, lows... It's a weird one for me to say, the 2010-11, because it's the only time we've won, and the build-up to it was so incredible. We've worked really hard to like find a style of play that we think could do the job there, but only playing 2 test matches out of the 5 fills me with a bit of sadness. I'm not an emotional person at all, but when I lifted my shirt up in the Adelaide change rooms and there was blood underneath my skin from my ab, like burst into tears, like full tears. Like the doctor didn't even... he just hugged me, didn't even like say anything. He knew my tour was over. That was an amazing low, like lowest that I could ever feel. You go back to your hotel room, shut the door, and it's like your whole world's ended at 22 or whatever it was. So that losing, even playing all 5, I think flying home injured, just not to experience it was probably the most painful, if I'm honest. Highs. 8:15, spot 60 all out. Actually, not that day. It was the Saturday, the day 3, where we turned up for 45 minutes play. It's like a festival, wasn't it? Like everyone just come for a party.
Yeah.
And, we needed 3 wickets, 4 wickets.
No,
that was a super high. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I think the Ashes is obviously the best thing, the most amazing thing. You've experienced some amazing highs. Like personally, I played terribly in the Ashes. Like my own like personal record would be, so even in that 2015 series, I remember building it up so much in my head. I asked so many people about how you could play. Obviously, Johnson had bowled rapid in the one before. Like, how do you face him? It's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And then Stark, don't do this, don't do that. And I made it such a big thing that I just absolutely froze when it came to it, and I just couldn't perform. But it was like amazing that we won, and I felt like I had to say that was the best moment of my career, winning the Ashes. But I knew deep down, and I feel happy saying it now, that I didn't really enjoy it, because personally, like I said, I didn't feel like I contributed. I didn't have that feeling of like really doing your job for the team that you're meant to, and I got dropped not long after. So it's like there's amazing highs I've had from watching other guys do. Like Ruti was incredible in that series 2015. I think he won the medal at the end of it, and he scored that 100, didn't he, after the 8 for 15. It's like by the end of the day, I think he'd scored 100 pretty much. But yeah, it's like I think that's why everyone loves the Ashes. So the highs and the lows are just so accentuated from like the good moments and the bad, and there's been plenty of them. And it's like I say, for you to write the book at the end, you're probably now, like you said, seeing actually how high and low you are, whilst you're trying to kid yourself that, oh, I'm a professional sportsman, I've got to stay on this even keel. But you're talking about ages you're at as well. 22 going home, 21. Like, it's so young. Like, but everyone sees you as a professional sports person. Like, you know, you should be able to deal with everything. Normal life doesn't affect them. But you're absolute kids at that time. You don't really understand what you're going through.
When you came back in 15, I thought you were 32.
I looked at it after all the stress of the last 2 years.
We talk about like emotion. The first balls of series, why in Ashes cricket are they're like, your stomach is just erupting when something. So Rory Burns, when he got bowled at Brisbane, my emotion just dropped to the floor. You know, you're built for this series for whatever.
Noise,
bang,
ground.
He's out. First ball, he's gone. And then when Zach Crawley hit that first ball at Edgbaston, better than any wicket. The elation of that was just pure joy in our changing room.
One thing I remember from the 10-11 tour is that I went up for the first over. So we won the toss, batted first maybe, that in 2010-11. And I was like, right, I'm going to go up and experience like this amazing Australian atmosphere, like anthems, going to watch the first over. And Straussy got out fourth ball, didn't he? Caught Gully, bowled Hilton House, caught Hussey, and the place just erupted. And I was like, well, I'm not watching another ball live. I'm the bad omen. So all the bowlers went downstairs, and we slept so much on that tour when we were batting. And granted, we batted for a long time, a lot of the time.
Became a superstition, didn't it? Remember at the Gabba, we didn't move. Me and Jimmy lay next to each other for 500 runs.
On 3 physio beds, like zombies, just watching it all on a TV. So you could hear the stadium, like, and the pounding feet. And when Siddle took that hat-trick on the first day, we're all climbing over each other to find our pads to go out there, and then Broady reviewed it, thankfully, when it was hitting middle and middle, and it gave us a bit of time in the dressing room to get padded up. But
when Pry got out there, I had my thigh pad on, that was it. That much of a scramble.
I was saying about actually with the Australian grounds that you are underneath and you can't sit, and you do feel the vibrations and everything, the noise that all happens. Obviously, looking ahead to this one, different role for you now as a broadcaster. You're heading over to Australia. What do you think it will be like? England, obviously, I think everyone's quite optimistic, aren't they? As an England team has got as good a chance as ever, really, going there.
Yeah, I would say it's England's best chance in 15 years to win the Ashes down there, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to the teams that have gone down there before, but I just look at the manner in which this team plays, and I think that mentality and attitude are probably the two most important things when it comes to going down to Australia. In 2010-11, we made a real effort to, one, like lay down a marker as a team from the mentality perspective when we got there, but we also looked to embrace the tour and enjoy it, which I'm not sure has been done since. In terms of allowing yourselves to go out and experience what is an amazing culture, an amazing country. And yeah, I think after that 2010-11, especially 13-14, when it all unraveled, it was like a school trip where you had to be in by this time. There were people checking up on what you were doing, where you were going. I think that this England team will enjoy the tour, but I also think that they'll bring a mentality to the cricket that they're not willing to be bullied. And I think that beating Australia in Australia, especially with that great bowling lineup they have, you have to have that attitude to be prepared to put them on the back foot. And yeah, I think that's the reason why I think it's their best chance.
Little dip at a prediction?
I think there'll be a result in every game, which is, I mean, that's not a huge prediction, but I think there'll be a result in every game, positively or negatively. And I'm saying 3-2 to England.
Are you going
well,
down
I think there's enough cracks. I think there's enough cracks in the Australian lineup for me that there haven't been there before. And we got fortunate in 2010-11 that we had a fantastic team, but there were also cracks in their lineup. Ponting giving up the captaincy, the bowling unit not quite settled.
Didn't have a spinner, did they?
No spinner, so they chopped and changed. And I kind of look at what Australia are doing with their top order and the fact that they don't really know who's going to be opening or batting number 3 in that first test as quite a big marker. How are they going to fit Cam Green and Bo Webster into the same lineup, which they seem to want to do? And then the bowling unit, Pat Cummins is back. I mean, I love watching Pat Cummins bowl. He's, I think, the best of the modern day bowlers that there are. But him having the question marks over his back and as captain as well going into the series, Josh Hazelwood has had some injury problems. So yeah,
I'm feeling good, isn't it? It's all sounding, go on England!
Yeah, go on England. But I think all of that into the melting pot plus England's mentality means that 1, it's going to be a fascinating series, but 2, I think they've got a great chance.
No, it's been great having you on, Finny. Wish you all the best with the book. When's it out?
The 6th of November.
6th of November. You can get it from all good bookstores.
You can, all of them, yep.
Amazon are probably a bit on there.
Yeah, a little bit on there. Yeah, you get a signed copy as well if you like.
Oh,
signed copy.
You're good at offering things out.
Yeah, I was going to say a little freebie for someone who put Stephen Finn in the comments.
There we go.
Tell us your favourite Stephen Finn memory. We'll send you a book.
No comment, Stephen Finn.
And you can read it on the way to Australia before you get there. So, Finny, thanks so much, mate. It's been great to have you. Great to hear all about your own career, the book and everything. And we wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me.
Look forward to watching your career develop.
Kick 'em well.